Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun. This is our new Only Murders in the Building theory discussion, and we have been teasing in the past couple of videos that this is a big one. We may have solved the case, guys. And
Yeah.
here's the funny thing. I'm saying this now, and it's probably going to be wrong. I'm probably going to pie myself in the face later.
Listen, there is a lot of evidence on this one.
Yeah. Okay. So we have combed through a lot of the past few seasons. We have like basically glued the tinfoil to our heads
Yeah.
and figuring it out. But Lester may actually be the biggest bad of the entire series. Sweet, innocent doorman Lester may actually be the one who has been pulling all the strings from the very beginning.
Yeah, and with the synopsis from the preview that's going to be coming up with this next episode that's sort of like you can't handle the truth, man. I can't handle the idea that sweet Lester could be behind all of this, but I mean, there's motive, there's ways. He's there all the time. He sees
Yeah.
everything. He knows this building inside and out. He cares about this building. He cares about the people in this building. Lester, today we are looking at you.
There is motive, there is means, and there is opportunity here. We're also going to be taking some trips back into the past, so
Yep.
prepare yourself accordingly. Before, though, we go down this gigantic rabbit hole, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we're here through the rest of the season with reviews,
Yep.
previews. We got those every Tuesday. Every Wednesday, we have theories. There's so much good stuff to talk about here.
Absolutely. We're also covering From here. We're
Yeah.
also going to be covering Teacup and Sweet Pea that are starting up this week. We're covering Grotesquerie. There is a lot going on here at the channel. So hit that subscribe button. And also, if you want to catch our Penguin coverage, we are covering the Penguin exclusively only on our Patreon. And we will have a link for you below where you can join and you're able to check out those reviews. And it also helps support Matt and I here at the
Yes.
channel. So thank you so much to everyone who has.
Thank you guys. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, to start, we are going all the way back to the pilot, the
Yeah.
very first episode, and really the very first words that Charles Hayden Savage says as the narrator. So, Charles is doing this whole bit about how New York City isn't as crime infested as a lot of people think, and he says this line. Let's face it, nobody ever discovered 19 bodies buried in the backyard of a 14-story apartment building. Hold on to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just deposit that, and we're going to move forward a little bit in time here. So, episode 3, episode 8, and this is in the first season.
Mhm.
This is when we get to a lot of the loose threads that were sort of referenced on this past episode.
Yeah, like episode 3, Winnie was poisoned, along with the note that was like, end the podcast or I'll end you. Episode 8 finds Jan finds the I'm watching you note, which now we've seen again
Yeah.
through the text messages this season as well. Same white background, same black text.
Yes. So, what we can take away from these things all the way back in season 1, and this is shortly after the podcast is getting started, is that somebody clearly did not like the idea of this happening. And I think at the time, it was pretty easy to sit back and be like, okay, well, this is obviously someone who is just trying to stop the Tim Kono investigation. That this is all about Tim Kono. It's never been about Tim Kono. It's been instead about the fear of something else potentially getting unraveled.
Yes.
All right, now we're moving to season 2. And season 2, we learned some pretty important stuff about Lester. This is where we actually get a little bit more backstory on who this guy is.
Yeah.
He is a former actor.
Yes.
That is very, very important for what we're going to talk about here.
Absolutely. He's also been at the Arconia a very long time.
So he has a very keen understanding, like you said, of the history of this place, the
Yep.
people who live there, what's been going on there. He is somebody who knows the trio and has known some of them for a very, very long time.
He would also know about the incinerator. He would also know about the passages.
Yes, he would know about it all. And, you know, even at the end of season 2, where they help to unmask Poppy, and we see a lot of the people in the Arconia kind of play a little bit of a role in that.
Yeah.
he comes across as, a heroic, likable figure. It's another reason to just like Lester so much. And he's not a hard person to like. Like, he
No.
comes across as so sweet, and I think he does care about this job. Like, I want to make that
Yes.
part of that pretty clear. I
Yeah.
don't think he is somebody who, at this present point in time, is necessarily fully evil, but that does not mean he was always this person.
Yeah, I mean, he could be evil. I like to think that if we get sort of the motivation at the end and it turns out that it's Lester, that maybe it's about the building and how he's invested in this building and the people in the building. He's invested in his job.
I hope that's the case.
I hope that's the case. Listen, if you're going to reveal it, is he, going to be like this sort of evil mastermind? I mean, anything's possible, guys.
Okay, this is where I get into the worst fears, guys.
Okay, let's get into oh my goodness, I have my hard hat on. Let's go.
Okay. The 6th Avenue slasher.
Yeah.
This was something that was discussed a lot in season 2 by Marv. Remember the fans? Remember when the podcast had fans?
That's right.
Marv was one of them, and he kind of went on and on about the 6th Avenue slasher, this killer who, was apparently some unsolved case. He had all these sort of theories that were about it. And eventually, he tries to help Lucy at a certain point and protect, because he thinks, the slasher is after her. And this led to a lot of theories at the time that, okay, is Marv actually the 6th Avenue slasher?
Yeah.
John Hoffman addressed some of that in an interview with TV Line, and he would say, I think I would hold on Marv as the 6th Avenue slasher. He's obviously a fan of these unsolved mysteries, so a reminder, this is unsolved. And he sees himself as a potential heroic figure. That's what he was doing in the building in that episode, trying to protect Lucy. I think he's a sweeter guy who is just deeply confused.
Yes, I don't think that he's the slasher.
Okay, so let's take Marv off the board then as the 6th Avenue slasher.
Yes, who do you guys think is the 6th Avenue slasher? Leave it in the comments. Matt?
It's Lester.
It's Lester.
Lester, here is where we go, guys.
Oh, it's getting so dark.
It's getting dark, everybody. Lester is the 6th Avenue slasher. He was somebody who was killing long before the podcast, long before the trio was doing any of this stuff. Is he doing it anymore? I don't necessarily think so. However, this is a pretty big secret that you're desperate to protect. And I'm going to go so far as to say all of these bodies are buried in the backyard of the Arconia. And that statement in the pilot is going to come true. And it is going to be terribly ironic and sad.
Yeah. And it's possible that Lester then also killed Dudenoff, and that this is another body that he's got sort of buried at the Arconia. And with the podcast and other people that have been getting killed at the Arconia, that he is worried that all of this is going to come out.
I feel like some of what happened here, if we're going to stitch together the mythology of the show, it goes a little bit like this. Lester knew Dudenoff from way back when because he was an actor.
Yep.
He might have attended Dudenoff's class at some point.
Yep.
But because Dudenoff knew him, Dudenoff probably had a better sense of access as to who Lester really was.
Yeah.
He might have been one of the first people who kind of caught on to, oh, Lester, something's off with you. Are you the slasher? Are you doing some of this stuff?
And now you dead.
And now you dead. And with that, I think he ends up being dead. The Westies end up starting to take advantage of this situation. Lester's a smart enough guy. I think Lester can figure all this out because Lester killed Dudenoff, that they're sort of able to perpetuate this relationship and this secret. But, the hard thing about all of this is that the Westies also have to live in a certain amount of fear of Lester, because if they ever say anything too much, Lester may find a way to go ahead and get them as well.
Or get them to lose their apartments.
Yeah, like he is somebody who has a lot of power in this particular situation.
Yeah, he does.
So all of that happens. And then we know Saz has started to put together some things. Saz has started to do some digging, has started to kind of realize things are going awry, starts to hear some stuff on the ham radio. Now, because Lester is a particularly older gentleman, he could easily have some sort of fascination with the ham radio, or he might be starting to hear chatter about some things going on that he simply does not like.
Yeah, and with the podcast, I mean, they are revealing quite a lot to everybody. So obviously he's going to be listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
He is, we saw that there was cameras that were planted in all the apartments that were not from the brothers sisters. Who has access to all the apartments? Lester.
Yeah. He has access to all of them.
Because the biggest question that I had was seeing Mabel in the Dudenoff apartment. There is a small handful of people that would have access to that apartment. That list is real short, but Lester's on it.
Yeah. Like one of the biggest questions that I sort of struggled with and sort of trying to figure this theory out was this idea of, okay, well, why would Lester care a lot about the movie? Because Saz warned Bev Mellon about, oh, there could be a problem going on with the movie. I think it's more to do with the idea that if there's a movie being made about the Arconia, that's going to bring more attention to the Arconia. And if Lester's goal is to just make sure his past as the slasher never comes to light, he doesn't want a bunch of people digging around through the Arconia, going back to season 1, readdressing some of these things that he did years ago to try to keep people away.
That's what this has been about the whole time, I feel. My tinfoil hat has been that this is about a secret that needs to stay buried. And with the movie coming out, that it could easily come to the surface, and they need to stop this movie from getting made. They wanted to stop the podcast from getting made. Same issue. All these secrets are coming out. Things are being exposed about this building. Whoever is behind it all, if it's connected to season 1, it has to be connected to something about the building.
Yeah, and a pretty big secret, like literal bodies being buried there, is the sort of thing that would easily justify everything that sort of is going on here.
Yeah, Dudenoff in the incinerator, how long has he been there for? The maximum is 3 years.
Okay, so this is where I'm kind of trying to piece together some things in my head here, that I think at a certain point, Lester just came to enjoy his job as a doorman, and he sort of adopted this new life, hoping that nobody would find out about his old life. Like that's how I'm able to sort of justify the demeanor I've seen from him these past couple of seasons. And I think what he had to do with Dudenoff may have been pretty haphazard, which is why he's not buried somewhere. He just ended up getting incinerated, and that sort of was the end of that. Okay, here's the next question, which is then, okay, well, let's say Lester did this, then why would Lester himself call up Charles and talk about, oh, there's something in the window that I've needed to have fixed? So first and foremost, on paper, it's kind of weird that the doorman would be involved in like any sort of maintenance responsibilities at the building.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be some sort of maintenance team that's going to be doing that. But I mean, it kind of makes sense that they would go to Lester. He's the front desk.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they would either put in requests with Lester, or they would put in requests with whoever's the manager.
Yeah, and in season 2, Nina sort of suggested that they were shifting around some responsibilities. So it's not unheard of that Lester would have that information. But I think he wanted Charles to know about some of what was going on there, and that, oh, we've gotten this request because Lester, while he might be calculating, he might be desperately trying to cover up his past, he's not omniscient. He can't read minds. He doesn't know exactly how much Charles knows, how much Charles has seen. And I think that's a part of his problem right now this season in general, which is why he might be sort of amplifying some of his I'm watching you text and all of this. He may not know how much Saz has already told the trio, and so he might be living in a little bit of a state of panic, and he's doing whatever he can to sort of throw the scent off of him.
Yeah, I think he's trying to threaten them so that they will just back off, not realizing that that isn't going to end up working, and that, there's already been threats in the past and they haven't backed off. They've continued on with their podcast. They've continued on with their investigation. It's not enough.
No, this is not going to work out for him if it's him. Like, let's just put it that way. It's just things are going to snowball and they're going to get worse. Now, here's another big question. Okay, then, well, did Lester go and take this person out at the Dudenoff apartment? I don't think so. I think what happened here is that because he knows what the Westies have been doing about Dudenoff and cashing these checks, he probably made it so that either one of them was the sniper, or he's made it into a situation where Helga was or somebody else over there was, but he is basically forcing them to
Mhm.
keep that secret because then he's going to tell everybody about what they've been doing.
Absolutely, he is keeping them in place by being like, "I will tell everybody unless you do this thing," and that the Westy Bessies have been feeling like they have to continue doing Lester's bidding for him, and Lester is then on the other side of the building where the body would be, that
Yep.
he would then be able to move Saz's body.
Yeah. Like Lester has a luggage cart.
Right.
We have seen this on the show. So for everybody out there who would say, oh, he's too old, he's not going to be able to do that. Lester is resourceful because as a doorman, you have to sort of know ways to do things that are beyond your physical capabilities all the time.
Having like the actual cart to be able to move luggage around, that cart is low.
Yeah.
And as a former funeral director, how we're able to move bodies from either a hospital bed over to like a gurney, it's basically pulling across onto something else to be able to then remove a body. With something like a luggage cart, it's really low to the ground. So for him to be able to then slide Saz over from the floor onto the luggage cart, he can do that.
Yeah. And this also helps explain one of the biggest problems I've been having for a while, which is why did nobody else notice, Sass's body being
Right.
carried down there? The biggest skill that Lester has, whether it's direct or indirect, is his stealth because
Right.
everyone is used to him, but he's also invisible to them. And he
Yes.
would also be well aware of what's going on, perhaps at a party at the end of season 3 where everyone is, and he would pretty easily be able to sort of know where Saz is, and if Saz is going up to the apartment, like it's not that hard of a stretch for him to be there.
Absolutely. He's somebody that everybody knows and he's
Yeah.
around. He's lovable Lester who's able to help out when you need help from him, but he's not somebody that's necessarily in everybody's life every day, someone that they may not notice. He can easily work in the shadows and people no one's going to blink an eye at Lester with
Yeah.
a luggage cart rolling down the hallway. Nobody.
Yeah, like there's holes in every only murders theory
Of course.
under the sun here, but it's just like when I'm starting to just think about, let's compare this to some other people, like Jan, who is clearly capable of doing all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Has Jan been around enough? Is Howard too obvious in some ways? Like I think they're going to try to find a way to surprise us. And if we're getting really, really meta here about everything, if you've been at the channel a long time, you know that one of Jess and I's favorite shows is The Blacklist. This actor who plays Lester was on The Blacklist
Yes,
playing
he
a
was.
particularly sinister guy.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, like he is more than capable of pulling off this sort of dark twist, and I think he would have a lot of fun with it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if we're sort of going to summarize everything here about what's going on with Lester, we have someone who clearly wants the podcast stopped so that none of his secrets about the past ever come out again.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting increasingly desperate trying to get people to go away because I don't think, and this could just be my opinion, I don't think he wants to kill anybody else. Like, I think he's tried to move on from that part of his life. And I think he's only going to do something unless he really, really has to. Like, clearly, he must have felt like he had to do something, whether it be as a distraction, a red herring, or actually to take someone out at that big photo shoot for the movie. Like, that's something that has to be addressed. But I think he clearly just wants to stop everything before it gets worse and the secrets actually get unearthed.
Yeah, this is all about secrets. I mean, the podcast needing that podcast to stop. There's only one reason for that, and that is that people are going to be digging into something that they don't want uncovered.
All right, and this is the last thing I think that people may say is like, is Lester tech savvy enough to use, cameras or anything else? I understand he's an older person, but we don't know what this guy's doing in his off time.
Listen, if my mom can figure it out, then I feel like Lester can figure it out.
Yes.
Anybody can figure out some of the more simple things like putting a camera in someone's apartment or
Yeah.
sending a text message.
The only thing that I'm going to be upset about beyond just, us spending like an unheard of amount of time prepping and researching this video is if we do all this and it turns out that the big bad is somebody totally random who wasn't even there in season 1. And then it's just going to be like, well, what's the point of
No.
all of this?
Okay, they can't do that to us. I don't think they're going to do that to us. I think that's what makes this show as good as it is that they do give you enough clues that are there to be able to figure it out if you're really looking. Like, this isn't a show that you can kind of like just casually jump into or look around or whatever and figure it out. And this season especially has been very difficult to figure out.
You know who I feel the worst for in all of this?
Mm-hmm.
Glenn. Because over the past week, I have just like single-handedly punted Glenn into oblivion where I'm not even thinking about him anymore.
I know.
I was so all in on Glenn being, I guess Glenn possibly still could.
Sure, all theories are still on the table.
Yeah, but this, oh God, I hesitate to say this. I'm going to say it.
Say it.
I have not been more confident in
Yeah.
an Only Murders theory than I am this one.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. It has to be somebody who is connected to this building and that there is a secret in this building where it's something like that. There's 19 bodies buried in the back.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it has to be somebody that's connected to this building. It is not anybody on this movie that is not connected to the movie. Like, it's not. If it's all coming back to season 1, it always feels, the title of this is Only Murders in the Building. Like, it has to be connected to somebody in the building. And like I said, the list is very short of the people that would have access to that Dudenoff apartment. It is short.
Yeah, very short. And there's a very limited amount of suspects, but we still have to treat all of them seriously. But for now, Lester, we're watching.
Yeah, we're watching you, Lester. It feels like it's him.
we know what your get down is now. But if you guys want to join us on Lester Island, which may or may not be depopulated by the end of this season.
No, we are all on Lester Island now. I am off Scott Bakula Island. I'm over on Lester Island. It's just the more that we looked into it and really thought about it, he makes the most sense. He has access to everything. Yeah. He knows where everything is. He has been there since time. Like, this makes the most sense.
Scott Bakula Island's still the most fun. I'm still going to say that, but okay.
Well, it is, but he's not the murderer this season.
All right, well, that's what we got here on this Only Murders in the Building theory video. So hit that subscribe button so you do not miss anything more. And if you want to support us further, join our Patreon. We have a link in the description below. We are covering the Penguin exclusively over there, having a really, really good time. Thank you to our patrons. We'll see you here next time.